let's jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are looking at a fundamental shift in the global recruitment landscape. We used to think of resume fraud as just minor white lies, right? Maybe bumping up a GPA or stretching an employment date by a month. Well, scratch that, not anymore. What we are facing today is a high-stakes, multi-billion-dollar technological arms race. It's an environment where fabricating a professional history has literally evolved into a highly coordinated, industrialized enterprise, and it's being fueled by generative AI and global fraud syndicates.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 1, industrialized deception, 2, hiring disasters, 3, screening failures, 4, zero trust AI, and finally, 5, compliance reality. Let's dive into it. Section 1, the industrialization of deception. We're going to start by looking at the sheer scale and economic vector of global CV fraud today. The numbers we are seeing are truly eye-opening. $600 billion. What's truly staggering about this massive number is that it represents the estimated annual cost of resume fraud to U.S. businesses alone. When recruitment pipelines lack structural rigor, the financial bleed is immediate. The direct cost of onboarding just a single fraudulent hire can reach up to $17,000 in upfront expenses. And that doesn't even touch the secondary damages, like lost productivity, legal liabilities, or compromised intellectual property.
These numbers brilliantly illustrate the breadth of the problem. We aren't just talking about a few bad apples here. A staggering 70% of U.S. workers admit to lying on a resume at least once. But think about these next two metrics. 15% of applicants use completely fabricated reference networks, and 17% of hiring managers have encountered candidates using real-time deepfake audio or video technology during virtual interviews. We have well and truly crossed the threshold from individual embellishment straight into aggressive, industrialized identity fraud.
This deception, it exists on a continuum now. Step 1 is your classical embellishment, inflating a job title or salary. But Step 2 introduces organized reference networks, where candidates use co-conspirators to fake their employment history. By Step 3, things get wild. We see candidates using voice cloning or face swapping so a highly qualified proxy can actually pass the interview for an unqualified applicant. And finally, Step 4 brings us to fully synthetic identities. We are literally talking about state-sponsored groups, like North Korean operatives, setting up remote laptop farms in places like Arizona to infiltrate Western companies and steal intellectual property.
Section 2. High-profile hiring disasters. Let's look at what actually happens when major institutions rely on blind trust instead of rigorous verification.
Take the case of Scott Thompson, who was hired to be the CEO of Yahoo. He claimed to hold dual degrees in both accounting and computer science, but in reality, he only had the accounting degree. Now, what's absolutely crucial to take away from this is how even top-tier corporate executive recruitment missed a completely basic educational discrepancy. The result was a disastrous 130-day CEO tenure and a $7.3 million severance package. Blind trust at the executive level is just incredibly costly. Impartially analyzing these high-profile cases across different sectors reveals a deeply concerning pattern of systemic failure. Look at KnowBe4, a premier cybersecurity firm that unwittingly hired a state-sponsored threat actor who bypassed background checks with a stolen U.S. identity only to attempt to deploy malware on day one. Or the United Nations, where an IT chief maintained a senior post for years with degrees purchased for a couple of £100 from an unaccredited diploma mill. Even in the humanitarian sector, Save the Children unknowingly hired an executive with a concealed history of sexual harassment simply because the previous employer provided a positive informal reference. The system is broken across the board.
Section 3. Why traditional screening fails. The crucial point here is understanding exactly why traditional human resources protocols are fundamentally outgunned today. Manual screeners are completely missing critical signals because they're relying on outdated methods. They fall victim to reference laundering because they don't check for coordinated IP overlaps to verify if a reference is real or just a burner phone. They suffer from accreditation blind spots, failing to verify if an impressive-sounding university actually has national accreditation or is just a shiny website selling PDFs. They miss timeline incoherencies that hide periods of incarceration. And, crucially, they completely lack remote identity validation, meaning they cannot detect if the person on the Zoom call is using a deepfake or a VPN routed halfway across the world.
Section 4, the Zero Trust AI Solution. To fight back against these sophisticated syndicates, organizations absolutely must adopt mathematically grounded, zero-trust AI verification architectures. This flow demonstrates exactly how modern AI tackles the problem. Step 1. The AI ingests an unstructured resume and uses natural language processing to extract the entities, titles, dates, companies. In Step 2, it doesn't just read the claims, it maps them against massive open public registries, like Open Corporates and the Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation. Step 3 executes dynamic checks, instantly flagging if, say, a company was dissolved before the candidate even claims to have worked there. Finally, Step 4 outputs a dynamic, evidence-based candidate reliability score.
Now, don't let the math intimidate you here. This equation simply synthesizes 4 independent, common-sense validation dimensions into a single reliability score between 0 and 1. RCV is your ultimate candidate reliability score, calculated by assigning weighted values to 4 independent pillars: identity, employment, education, and references. Let's break down how AI actually verifies each one.
The first pillar of the formula ensures that the person on the remote video interview is mathematically verified to be the actual person whose identity is on the background check. It uses liveness detection and facial matching against government-issued IDs to completely shut down deepfakes, proxy interviewers, and synthetic personas. The second pillar checks official corporate data. This AI function evaluates the legal status of the employer, the semantic match of the job title, and the precise temporal alignment of dates. It will instantly flag if a candidate claims to have worked for an organization before it was even legally incorporated, or if they claim a C-suite title but simply don't appear on any official historical registered officers lists. The third pillar eliminates the diploma mill threat. Instead of just glancing at a fancy PDF certificate, this index objectively confirms the university was legally accredited by a recognized national body during the exact window the candidate claims to have been enrolled. If it's a known accreditation mill, that score plummets straight to 0.
And the final pillar stops reference laundering in its tracks. It forensically checks for things like device overlaps, virtual numbers, and temporary email domains to ensure the person giving the recommendation is an independent, verifiable colleague, not just, the candidate's roommate sitting in the next room over.
Section 5, Regulation and Compliance Reality. Now, wielding this incredibly powerful AI verification weapon brings us to immense legal responsibility and strict adherence to international law.
If you're using these systems, you need to pay close attention to this. Under the new European Union AI Act, any AI system deployed in employment, recruitment, and automated screening is legally classified as high risk. This severe classification means any organization utilizing AI to score or evaluate candidates in the EU, and that is regardless of where the company is headquartered, faces intense regulatory oversight and mandatory compliance registers. Business leaders must carefully navigate this complex web of algorithmic accountability. You have to fulfill deployer obligations under the EU AI Act, ensure all data collection for public registry mapping strictly aligns with GDPR principles, and adapt your technology stack to respect diverse national laws governing algorithmic bias. It is a very delicate balance of aggressively screening out industrialized fraud while rigorously protecting candidate privacy and fairness. The landscape of hiring has permanently changed. A simple phone call and a quick glance at a PDF are just no longer enough to protect your organization. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this critical question to think about. Is your hiring pipeline truly zero trust, or are your structural blind spots inadvertently funding the next state-sponsored syndicate? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and stay vigilant out there.